Hello, welcome back to my video blog. This is Paul Chek. Today I thought I'd share some information about healing from smoke and fire exposure. I've had a number of email requests from people in Australia who are suffering the challenges that come with smoke exposure. And being from San Diego, California, I'm sure most of you are aware that Southern California has a long history of fires right up till recently. It's part of the challenge we face here in such a hot, dry climate and having a lot of brush areas. In fact, my buddy Laird Hamilton had to fight like hell to save his house in Malibu and got quite intoxicated, detoxified from the smoke, and reached out to me for support for detoxifying. So I'll share some of the concepts I shared with him with all of you. And for those of you that aren't involved in the fires, the detoxification tips that I'll share here are just good general information for detoxification in general. So first off, for those of you that are exposed to fire or have been traumatized by it or lost homes or valuables or things like that, I have empathy for you. When I was 8, our family home caught on fire due to a chimney fire and burnt half the house down. So I was involved in the intense and shocking experience of having our house burned down and trying to fight it the best we could with hoses and all sorts of things while waiting for firefighters to come. So I know the experience intimately, and it can be quite traumatic. One of the things I will share, though, if we look at it from a bigger perspective, fire is a force of transformation. It means new beginnings. So whenever there's fires in nature that are started naturally by lightning and things like that, particularly lightning's the most common cause, research clearly shows that it remineralizes the soil. And having been back to places in the San Diego area and other areas that have been completely burned out, within a year or two, it's quite astonishing how much beauty and life there is and how much more lush the vegetation is and how healthy the trees are. So with all the environmental changes going on this planet due to external factors such as the warming of the sun, and due to global warming and things like that, the Earth is going through a lot of changes, and she's doing what she's got to do to balance herself. So fire, when it takes things away from us, is a chance for new beginnings, and it can be a healing and transformative process. So if you're one of these unfortunate people who are caught in a fire situation or have been, then it's always helpful to look at it from the bigger picture, and instead of getting stuck in what you don't have, shift to what you can create with this new beginning and the awareness that fire has a healing function on the planet. Now, when it comes to detoxification from issues of fire exposure, and by the way, I've spent many years rehabilitating firemen. I have a long history of working with firemen and fire departments here in San Diego. And so I'm actually quite familiar with what kind of challenges firemen face. They have a very, very high rate of cancer due to exposure to all the chemicals that are released in burning buildings. And this is likely to be the case with anybody exposed to fires in Australia, Southern California, or anywhere, particularly in city environments. In fact, not too long ago, a fire broke out right next to where my second wife Angie's mother lives, and it got to within a couple blocks of her house. So, I am fairly familiar with these issues of fire and the challenges they bring environmentally, psychologically, and to one's health. So I'm going to give you some of the tips that I use, really the kind of the map that I use in its basic format to help any of you heal detoxify from fire, and you, as I said earlier, you can use this map for detoxification as a general rule. Number one, saunas and steam baths are very, very good detoxification methods. The sweat of the body brings toxins out of the body. Our major organs of detoxification are urination, or the pathway of urination, the pathway of defecation, the pathway of sweating, or the skin, the liver, the kidneys, and the colon, liver, kidneys, colon, lungs, and skin. So we want to be aware that anytime we can enhance the function of any of those detoxification organs, we can. And another key thing that I didn't write on the board is eating high quality organic foods is extremely important, because organic foods are far less toxic than non-organic foods, and they have noticeably higher nutrient densities. And if you eat a organic food on a 4-day rotation diet, then you'll increase the variety of nutrients, and then you can add an organic whole food supplement to your diet. A good one is New Chapter, for example, and that will expand your nutrient availability from whole food sources to support your detoxification pathways. So whenever you can use an infrared sauna. It penetrates deeper into the tissues, so you get a deeper cleansing, and it's less stressful to the body due to the mechanisms of how infrared works on the body. I won't go into that here, but a standard sauna works fine. Steam baths work really well. One of the challenges with commercial steam bath type situations is that they're almost always using chlorinated water, so you're going to be breathing a lot of chlorine gas. So that is a challenge. If you can find one that isn't full of chlorine, that's a good idea, so you're not trying to get toxins out while you're breathing them in. Then cardiovascular exercise is very good. So running, biking, anything that you can use to get a good deep full breath. I would recommend anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour of low intensity, steady state cardiovascular work in an environment that's not toxic. In other words, you wouldn't want to be doing that too close to a fire, or in an area where there's been a fire and there's still a lot of ash and toxins in the air. If you can go to a gym or someplace that has good filtration systems, that would be fine if the air is clean. But when we're using cardiovascular exercise to pump and oxygenate the body and bring ourselves to a sweat, we're greatly enhancing detoxification. In fact, even weightlifting can be helpful, because weightlifting increases the body's ability to catabolize toxins. I've seen research on bodybuilders, for example, and they compared bodybuilders to normal people that didn't lift weights, and they gave them a fairly high dose of caffeine, and they monitored how long it took the body of the athletes lifting weights versus the non-weightlifting athletes to clear the caffeine, and there was a significant difference in favor of the athletes lifting weights with regard to how quickly they could clear caffeine from their body. And I've seen weightlifting be very helpful in detoxification programs, provided you have the nutrition and other factors in support, or it just becomes an additional stressor. And then breathing exercises, just taking a full diaphragmatic breath. So one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly. Get the first 2/3 of the breath from expansion of the belly or movement of the diaphragm, and the last 1/3 of the breath from the chest. And put your fingers on your bottom ribs, and as you inhale, focus on moving your two fingers away from each other. Now, they're not going to move a lot, but if you get about 1 centimeter or more of movement on either side, that's good. That means that you're getting lateral expansion of the rib cage, and that pumps the kidney system and helps support the kidney system. So there's a lot of different breathing exercises. Some of them are shared right in my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, such as piston breathing. But even just practicing normal breathing, like I've just described, and spending several minutes a day, I encourage people to set a timer, and every hour on the hour do 12 centering breaths, where you practice just anchoring yourself in your breath and taking a dozen full diaphragmatic breaths to help re-educate the body as to how to breathe diaphragmatically. And that can bring a lot more oxygen, help alkalinize the blood, maintain the pH of the blood more effectively, stimulate the brain, support the sympathetic system, and do all sorts of amazing things to support you. Next, when it comes to using various detoxification kits and approaches, it's important when you're starting a detoxification process, even if it's because you've been exposed to smoke inhalation from fire, you always want to do an oral colon cleanse kit, or supplementation program to clean yourself from mouth to anus, because all the toxicity and stuff that's trapped inside the colon, small intestine and large intestine, is what's coming through the small intestine and goes right directly to the liver via the portal vein. So if you start doing things like liver cleanses, kidney cleanses, and things like that, or even potentially lung cleanses before you get the alimentary tract or the small and large intestine cleaned up, you're not going to get a good result, because you're constantly moving the toxins out of the digestive system into the liver and the kidneys and the rest of the body. And of course that gets into the blood, which then ends up in the lungs as well. So I prefer the products that you can get at aerobiclife.com. They have very good oral colon cleanse kits, and for those of you wanting to heal parasites, they have a good anti-parasite product you can use with the oral colon cleanse kit as well. Once you've cleaned the colon effectively, then you can go to a liver cleanse. Once you've done the liver cleanse, you can go to the kidney cleanse. And there's various companies, there's too many to mention, that have liver and kidney cleanse programs. There's many naturopathic books with a variety of recipes for those in there, so I'm not going to try to list all that here. It'd be far too much. Now, another important thing is that when you're near fires, they can burn metals, they can melt aluminums and all sorts of toxic stuff, the insulation on wires, paints in buildings. It's an extremely toxic environment. A lot of paint has lead in it, for example, so it's very common for people that have been exposed to fire and suffered smoke inhalation to end up with high levels, toxic levels of heavy metals in their body. There's no better program or product I've ever found in my career than a product called Metal Free for detoxifying metals. In my opinion, it's as effective as chelation therapy, but far easier to use. And it's an enzyme-based product that catabolizes the heavy metals and pulls them out of your body very efficiently and effectively. So if you go to the website tiny.cc Metal Free, that's exactly the URL there, you'll find the Metal Free product, information about how it works, and instructions might be there, but I know they come with the product because I've used it many times with myself and in therapy with clients. So you want to get heavy metals out of the body because they can be very disruptive to the hormonal system, the immune system, and the nervous system. In fact, all systems of your body, especially mercury. Then there's a variety of herbs and tinctures for lung support. So you could go to a health food store, or you could go to a professional herbologist and ask for herbs and or tinctures for detoxification and lung support, and you would get help that way as well. Essential oils can be very helpful. What I use in my sauna pretty much every night is eucalyptus to help detox, because I like to vaporize tobacco and herbs So even though there's no fire because I'm using a vaporizer, it still does bring particulates into my lungs. Some of you may have noticed a while back I had a spot right here near my nose. That was from the oils, from the tobacco and the herbs, and I was bringing in more than I could detoxify. But what really helped is when my wife Angie Chek, who is a nutritionist, suggested that I use glutathione, which is the most powerful antioxidant and free radical scavenger that I've come across. And within 2 weeks, it completely cleared it right off my face like magic. I watched it disappear a little bit each day, and 2 weeks went by, and a spot probably between the size of a dime and a nickel was completely gone. So I've stayed consistent with using that on a daily basis because of my love of vaporization of herbs and tobaccos. So another tip for you is glutathione is probably an extremely good idea. I'd go for the highest quality one you can find. If you go to angiesworld.com, Angie can source organic sources and super high quality sources for you from a variety of different sites and carriers that have organic and high quality supplies if you need help finding any supplements or anything in regard to what I'm sharing here. That's angiesworld.com. And she's the chief of our holistic lifestyle coaching program and a licensed nutritionist who has a lot of experience with these types of issues. Now, I use eucalyptus oils. There's many oils that can be very, very helpful for detoxification and cleaning the body. I have 2 excellent podcasts with Dr. Nick Berry, the Essential Oil Wizard, where I go through a wide variety of oils, the challenges they're helpful for, and how to use them. So if you go to Living 4D, number 4, capital D, with Paul Chek, you can find my podcast either on iTunes, most podcast outlets, or right on the Chek Institute home site, chekinstitute.com. On the home page, there's a podcast tab. Just look for the 2 podcasts with Dr. Nick Berry. His website is essentialoilwizardry.com. And he has something like 300 oils. He is the most knowledgeable person on the use of essential oils I've ever met in my life. And he's a true genius. If you want to email him, let him know I referred you, tell him you're looking for some specific oils for detoxing from fire exposure, and I'm more than sure he'll help you out. Now, the other thing that you need to consider is going to a functional medicine practitioner and getting an environmental toxicity panel done. I've run many of these on clients for a wide variety of challenges, especially people like firemen, and you come up with all sorts of chemicals, things that are in packaging, food packaging, styrofoam, like I said, lead from paints that have been burning. There's a lot of chemicals that are produced in fires whenever buildings are on fire, many of them very toxic to the body. So by doing an environmental toxicity panel through a functional medicine practitioner, you can identify exactly what chemicals and or heavy metals you have in your body, and the functional medicine practitioner can give you very specific supplementation or detoxification protocols based on exactly what you have in you, because it could be aluminum, it could be copper, it could be mercury, it could be iron, it could be nickel. I've seen all sorts of stuff, and I had to clear all this stuff out of my body. I had a lot of heavy metal detoxification from overexposure to vaccinations, because when I was a paratrooper, well, when I came into the 82nd Airborne Division, you have to have 23 vaccinations to be ready to go anywhere in the world. And if they lose your shot records for any reason, you have to have all your vaccinations again. And they lost my shot records somehow 2 times. So I had to have all 23 shots 3 times. And they have aluminum and mercury in those vaccinations, and it resulted in me having extremely high levels of mercury and other heavy metals that I had to detoxify, and metal-free was one of the key agents that was effective for me to do that, and it significantly enhanced my brain function when I did that, which was great. So Next, let's all send our love to all the beings that are displaced, traumatized, or killed by fire around the world. It is quite a scary, devastating thing. I've known a number of people right here in the San Diego area whose entire homes were burnt down, and it is a traumatic experience. But there's also all the animals in nature and all the little beings that support us that get destroyed or lose their homes. And there's a lot of people being traumatized in Australia. The whole country's practically on fire, as many of you would know from watching the news. So anytime you can take a moment just to open your heart and send your love to those people and to those beings that have been killed or displaced by fires, I think that we can all support through acts of love at a distance. To me, these are very real things. If you've ever looked at Larry Dossey's research on prayer, he's got an entire book on it, and I've looked at a number of books on it, and the scientific evidence is undeniably clear that prayer works. And so I don't need the scientific evidence because I have an intuitive sense of knowing about these things, but it's always good when your intuition is backed by science. So I hope you find this information helpful. If you want to learn more about how to care for yourself and detoxify yourself and even help others, you're welcome to go to chekeinstitute.com and look at our Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 1 program online. Completing that program gives you access to Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 2, which is our professional program for holistic lifestyle coaching as a profession, which then goes on to our advanced program HLC3, where you learn a lot of very useful assessments and techniques to not only help people heal, detoxify, but how to coach them effectively and how to work with the emotions and the mind effectively. So thanks for joining me today. I'll look forward to sharing something new and exciting with you next week.